and welcome to this episode of Counsel Trends. I am Dr. Mercy Connors, and I'm here with my lovely partner, Dr. Shawnee Anderson. And you will notice that we are in a different set. This is our new set. We hope you like it. Let us know in the comments what you think. But we're also trying something different today. We did a little bit of research on our videos, and we noticed that we tend to say interesting a whole heck of a lot. So what we have down here is our little cheat sheets that we are going to try to say different words. So if you notice us saying interesting and then messing up and trying to come back to it, that is why we're doing that. But today, I think we have a very compelling article that we are going to be talking about. And I love this topic. Mm-hmm. The article name is The Cost of Justice, Vicarious Trauma, and the Legal System's Duty of Care to Jurors. And this is in the Laws Journal, and it came out in September 5th, 2025. And I have to admit, I love this topic.
Yes. Well, you weren't in the room when we kind of decided to do this. And It is because of our producer, Aubrey.
Yes.
And she has been a juror twice and in some fascinating cases. And what we started talking about is just the devastating impact on jurors.
Right.
And so we're like, okay, we're going to do a Counsel Trends on this. We're going to drag Mercy in and she'll love it.
Yes.
So I'm glad you do.
I do love it. That's right. And I think it's something too, one of the things that they highlight in this article is that it's an overlooked problem, which I'm like, absolutely makes complete sense that this is overlooked. Now, when we really think about jury duty, you know, most people are just like, oh, I'm giving up my time and it's this thing that I don't want to do. But there are times when it is really intense cases.
Like, have you ever served on a jury?
I have not. I've never been asked.
Really?
I've never even been asked. No.
Wow.
So let's keep that streak going.
I used to get asked every year when I was living in California. Yes, but never got chosen. I don't know if they would want me because I do forensics already.
Yes.
They'd probably kick me off. But I have friends that have done it, and it has been a powerful experience for them. And Aubrey talked about a very unique and intense experience.
Right. And I think that's interesting too. Oh, it is thought-provoking too, because it really depends on the case that you get.
Yes.
You can get a case that is very benign, you know, that may be having to do with fraud or something like that. But then you can get a case where it could be murder. Mm-hmm. It could be sexual assault.
Yes.
It could be child abuse, child sex abuse. Like, you could get some really intense cases and you never know what it's actually going to be. And I think that that's something that people need to be thinking about. Like those that do jury duty or however that works within the court system, they really need to be thinking about how can we prep these people?
Right. Well, and that's what I really love about the article is they talk about that it's really never even addressed.
It's never addressed.
But it's addressed often with other parts of the jury system, such as perhaps judges and attorneys and other people are aware and they can prepare for this and recognize that it might be psychologically scarring in some ways.
But not for the jurors.
Which
is crazy to me because they're the ones actually determining who's guilty and not guilty.
Right.
Like, ultimately, the decision comes down to them.
Yes. Well, and we're probably going to get to it later, but when it was talking about they have to make an objective decision. And I'm just thinking how difficult that can be for somebody who's being actively traumatized, hearing and seeing horrific things.
Right.
And they can't react in the jury box, although sometimes people do.
Because it's visceral. Exactly. It's something that's just going to happen.
That's the word. It's visceral.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine seeing some of these pictures or listening to some of the audio that they're talking about. Like, I can't imagine not physically responding to that.
I know for me, having worked on forensic cases as a forensic psychologist, hearing certain crimes actively take place, seeing body cam videos, seeing pictures, after murder cases and things like that. It is intense and profound. And if I were not a trauma expert who's been doing this for a really long time, and I know how to kind of prepare myself,
Right.
I would totally be traumatized by the experience.
Right. So then it makes sense that we're talking about this because this is something that happens a lot. I think it's interesting that we already really do have words for this. We have definitions for this. It's I like how they bring up vicarious trauma.
Right.
And if you can go ahead and give us a definition for vicarious trauma.
Yes. Well, they're talking about one of the big risks of witnessing all of these things as you might as a juror, that it puts you at risk for PTSD because you are not having the experience directly, but it's indirect, which is exactly what vicarious trauma we know as clinicians can also experience. It involves a cumulative effect of over time watching these things and listening to these things day in and day out. But what can happen for a juror is as you're watching and listening to all of these things, they can have things which are called secondary traumatic stress, which is having PTSD from indirectly experiencing something horribly traumatic.
Right. Like what you were talking about with like hearing the things or seeing the videos and things like that. Like they are actually experiencing it as close to the person who was killed or hurt or
right. Well, we know we see a lot of the secondary traumatic stress with individuals that have to deal with like crime scenes and police officers and sometimes attorneys and things like that have the ancillary impact, I guess, or involvement.
Right.
But nobody's talking about the fact that jurors can end up with PTSD as well.
Yes. And I think it's also interesting. Oh, no. It is insightful that the jurors are not volunteers.
Right.
Like they're compelled.
They're being forced.
They are forced to do this. So it's not like a police officer that this is their chosen profession or not like a lawyer. It's their chosen profession. This is by law. This juror has to be there and they don't get a choice.
Which is interesting because it harkens back for me to an old definition of PTSD that actually included experiencing a traumatic event and feeling helpless and powerless, that you can't flee, you can't fight, that it's inescapable. And I think that's exactly what is going on for these jurors.
Right.
You get called, you don't really know what you're stepping into, and you have to sit in a jury box and you can't leave. You have to listen, you have to watch, and then somehow you're supposed to remain objective and not having a traumatic reaction.
Right. And it's not just that, it's that you are picked for it. You know, that is even worse. It's like maybe the person sitting next to you gets to go home, but you have to now stay. And, one of the things that I thought was striking about this too was talking about how jurors are supposed to not respond.
Yes.
Like not emotionally respond. And it actually gave a couple of different examples of this, that there was a case in 2017 in a North Carolina murder trial where a female juror physically vomited in the courtroom after being shown graphic crime scene photographs. Like...
I'm surprised it's only once.
I am sure that's happened more than that.
Yes.
Or somebody was able to keep it in until like they actually got out of. But I mean, to really understand that, like, I'm not super, super squeamish, but there are going to be times when I'm going to be like, I can't handle that. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm also thinking of attorneys are wanting to impact the jury.
Right.
Especially if you're a prosecutor. It's like, I want to show you how heinous this crime was so that you can recognize how severe it is.
Right.
And yes, it's like you're stuck there. You've been chosen to be there by God knows what reasons, and you can't do anything about it.
And you're not supposed to show physical reactions. You're supposed to say neutral and impartial. You're supposed to remember all of this stuff. You're not supposed to talk to the other people that are experiencing it as well. Like, talk about profound loneliness.
Yes.
profound loneliness while you're being traumatized.
Well, and let's throw another layer on it, is I'm also thinking a lot of times the individuals that get chosen for jury duty are chosen because maybe they don't have a full-time job, or they, can't find an excuse to get out of it, as I think
Right.
many people do. And so I'm just curious about the mental health, just in general, of individuals that do jury duty.
Right.
Are they, because I'm going to guess if I'm a CEO, not saying that they've got better mental health, but for a lot of people, might they already be at higher risk? I don't know. I think that would be an interesting study to look at. But to sit and tolerate this, I don't see how more individuals are not traumatized.
Right. And it's not just that. Like, I'm thinking of people that have mental health diagnoses or are undiagnosed, right, with a
Mhm.
mental health disorder. And then they're chosen to get on to this jury without anybody realizing, hey, this person has underlying PTSD that has
Right.
not been diagnosed, or this person has a traumatic child sexual issue that happened in
Mhm.
their past, and now you're going to bring it to light because it's
Exactly.
exactly what they're seeing.
Well, I'm also thinking of now we have to have everything so trauma informed
Right.
across the board, whether it's in therapy or we're seeing a medical doctor or just across the board in so many areas of our world now. I don't think it's trauma informed at all in court, because are they even warning them? Are they saying, here's a trigger warning, we're going to be talking about something that's going to be very upsetting? I don't think they do any of that.
And I don't think that they can. Like, when you think about
You're
it,
right.
I don't think that they can do that. They can't. I mean, I'm sure that they can give the person a little bit of knowledge, but really they can't show their hand
Right.
to the prosecution or the defense, whichever one you are
Right.
not, right?
Well, and that's where this study I thought was very interesting, because it was based in Australia and how they have some different regulations and rules around it than we do in the United States.
Right. In the United States, we are jurors after are allowed to speak about it, the situation, if they are allowed to, if there's no gag order
Right.
on the
But that's where,
jury.
if you look, for example, at the OJ case, the OJ Simpson
Yes.
case, and when was it? That was in 1995. And the jury was sequestered for 265 days.
And what does sequestered mean?
They were locked away from home. They had to live in a hotel. And I don't remember if there was a gag order then. I don't think they could talk to family or friends. I know they couldn't talk to the media. So imagine living in a hotel room for almost a year and being exposed. I mean, I was living in LA when that happened. So I've seen crime scene photos. I know exactly where the murder happened. I lived down the street. And just being forced to view these things over and over, and not having a safe place where you can talk to somebody about it. And they're talking about in Australia, you can't even talk about it in therapy. So even if you get traumatized by what's happened, confidentiality extends after the trial, even into the therapeutic relationship, which is horrendous to me.
Right. And thankfully, we live in the United States, and that's not the case here.
Yes.
But that is something that would create even more trauma.
Mhm.
And it's, I can't find a word there. It's interesting that they also bring up the fact that people have committed suicide because
Yes.
of being a juror.
Well, let's talk about the consequences of this. So we talked about PTSD. You're talking about suicide. Do you remember some of the other ones?
Obviously, moral injury was another one. And I thought that was very scintillating. I feel like that's not a right word for that.
I think the moral injury, I want to sit here if we can for a minute, because I think the moral injury impact is so critical and so important, and nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got a case that involves, like, for example, I think they were talking about some of the child sexual abuse cases, perhaps within the church.
Yes.
And what if you are a member of that faith?
Yes.
And what can that do to your own sense of right and wrong when you have these individuals that are supposed to be safe individuals that are actually harming children?
Right. Right. Or you get into a situation where you think it's wrong as a juror, but all the other jurors did not.
Right. And then maybe they bully you or coerce you to change your vote.
So that they can get out of jury duty, so that that's not a hung trial or hung jury. You know, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine living with myself, you know, thinking, I don't believe that this person is guilty, or I do think that this person is guilty, and I still have to give a vote for something I do not believe in.
Right. I think I would hope that most people would have the strength to be able to stand up against that, but they don't.
Well, I mean, think about the O.J. Simpson sequestered for 265 days. All they probably wanted to do was get out of that.
Exactly. So let's just convene. Let's vote 3 times. Let's get this over with.
Right.
I want to go home. I think there's a lot of issues that are complicating all of this.
Which then, therefore, makes you think, okay, you may get a jury's decision, but was that a really deliberated decision? And if they're under psychological duress, I think we can't say that.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that I thought was so interesting I used it again, that was so critical to talk about with this article is the absence of accountability. That the authors were really talking about, this is a high risk situation that you're not able to say, I want out of it. You're forced to do it. We know it can cause harm, and yet there is no accountability there. It's like, bummer for you. I mean, they may offer, a handful of counseling sessions after, but from everything I read, you have to actually seek that out.
Yep.
Nobody is doing any debriefing after the fact. Nobody is checking in on you throughout the process of a trial, especially if it's a long trial. Do you think that they need to be held accountable for what they're doing?
I think so too. One of the compelling things in this article was when they were talking about the individual that suicided after the wife went and sued for a wrongful death, and it was rejected.
Yes.
And I'm like, how are you gonna reject that?
Yes.
Like, when he literally was saying, basically, it's because of this trial.
It exacerbated his depression and why he killed himself.
Yes. And you're just going to say, nah.
No, we don't think so. He would have killed himself anyways. I'm sorry, that was very harsh.
But that's
what they were saying.
That's what they were saying.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, that man was chosen to be on that jury.
It's like your rights get taken away and nobody seems to care.
Well, and what about, shouldn't there be some type of mental health assessment before they get put on these juries? Because, I mean, do you really want to put somebody on there who has experienced child sexual abuse if it's going to be a child sexual abuse case?
I think you might have attorneys that say, yes, I would love to have a survivor on my jury because they get it and they will vote in my direction.
That's terrible.
But that's what I'm saying is, it's like, again, I'm not an attorney.
I don't care if I re-traumatize you. I want to do it anyway. Oh my goodness.
But I'm wondering, do they even question these things?
I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. And then it goes back to ethics, right? What is the ethical thing to do?
Right.
Is the ethical thing to get somebody who's going to be a little bit more objective, or are you going to go for the win?
Right. I think in addition to maybe a mental health screen, having a screen of resilience may be important, because I'm thinking anybody is going to be upset by what this is. And I think resilience might be a better measure. I don't know, because it's going to show how are you going to be able to cope with the stress of, one, being on a jury, but also, two, seeing such horrific things. Will you be able to bounce back? Or will it exacerbate your mental illness?
Or is it something that you could give prior? Could there be some type of resiliency training prior that, hey, we know from research that this is going to harm your mental health. We're trying to prevent that. I would want to go more with the preventative than the aftercare.
I think all of it needs to be done. I think you're absolutely right that we need to be trauma informed in the court system.
Yes. And who's going to do that?
You.
Oh, no.
Well, that's why we're bringing it out so that people will be interested.
Somebody needs to
Yes.
come up with this idea.
But they do talk about some suggestions of things that could be done, and I thought they had some good ideas.
Yes, one of them I did like, and this may be more of my justice feeling coming out, that people are actually starting to sue the court system for these negative results on their mental health. So I actually am happy about that because nothing talks like money, unfortunately.
Yes.
But
But it is interesting because they talk about reform and they are talking about the importance of doing pretrial work. And so mandatory psychological briefing beforehand, but they're not even talking about screening. The article didn't talk at all about, let me do a baseline screening for mental health and maybe resilience.
Yep.
But then they're also talking about doing in-trial reform, that checking in with people regularly of, how are you doing listening to this intense, horrific stuff?
Right.
And then post-trial of checking in with people afterwards and also offering them counseling and things that can help.
I would think it would be easy to have a mental health professional that is listening to the same thing that they're listening to, because a lot of times trials are open for media or public to be in there. So why couldn't you have them in there? And then them just be available to the jurors if they needed to during that time. And that would be the same person that you would encourage for aftercare because they would already know all the stuff that the jurors heard.
That's a great idea.
That seems kind of easy.
So let's somehow figure out how we can get this counsel trends into the hands of some people that are doing
law work
and judicial reforms.
But I do like the idea of there being some type of trauma informed. I think that that's really wise, but also for clinicians to be aware. Again, I mean, we talk about this all the time, I feel like, but in the assessment to be asking if there has been any of these experiences, because some people are not realizing that they were actually probably traumatized or re-traumatized by being on a jury.
Exactly.
So, well, we hope that you enjoyed this topic and hopefully one of you will take up the mantle of figuring out how to have a trauma-informed jury. Please let us know if you liked this information. Give us a thumbs up and also comment down below if you have any suggestions for different topics that we can see. If you enjoyed this content and you would like to see more counsel trends or more things like this, please become a member of the AACC. There is a link in the description. And please know that we love being a part of your life.